Hello, thanks for checking out this video. My name is Josiah, and in advance of our nonpartisan primary forum on April 29th, and in advance of the primary on May 20th, 2025, for mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, we sat down with each of the candidates officially on the ballot to get to know them better. We designed these interviews to be conversational, a chance for people to hear a little bit more about their history, their passion for public service, why they got into politics, or why they're entering into politics, as the case may be. And we just wanted to let you know that in some of these conversations, we touch on some intense topics, things that have happened in the city, maybe it's violence or other topics that we just wanted you to be aware of going in. I also would like to acknowledge our partner on these interviews and on the forum for April 29th, Public Source, which is a fine regional independent journalism organization focused on the city of Pittsburgh and our region. They helped develop some questions based on their coverage of the high-level topics and themes of the race. And while I didn't pose every question that they developed to the candidates, just letting the conversations go as they will, wanted to acknowledge that and thank them for their partnership on this series and on the forum on April 29th. So without further ado, hope you enjoy. And if there's time, I hope you join us on Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 at Point Park University, where all of the candidates will be there to talk about these themes, their candidacy, and this moment in Pittsburgh. Thanks. We have Mayor Ed Gainey in the studio with us today. Thanks for being here, Mayor.
Oh, my brother, thank you for having me, man. I
Appreciate
it, man.
No doubt.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you,
doing
man.
Your thing, brother.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you're one of the most well-known people in the city, man, but for those who don't know you, give us your story. Tell us your Pittsburgh story.
Yeah, was born, my family's from the Hill District. I was born in South Oakland on a street called Lawn Street. We're the second black family on that street. Then from there, when I was 6 years old, we moved to East Liberty. I grew up in East Liberty. And, I enjoyed it. I stayed in what they used to call the high-rise buildings. And it was a good time. I ended up graduating from Peabody High School. I started at Dilworth, went to Holy Rosary, did 2 years at Central, and finished up at Peabody High School. Then I went on to college. And once I got to college is when I got into politics. I was always, always very strong with my mama. It was just me and my mom. I came up from a single mom, and I respect all the sacrifices she had to make for me to be where I'm at. I never take it for granted. And then I know growing up, too, just growing up in communities where, we might not have had no money, but we didn't feel like we didn't have no money. We always had a lot of love in our community. So just growing up in a community where, you could see kids smile was always something that was good for me. But I didn't get into politics until I got to college. I have never met a politician in the city in my life growing up. I never had one knock on my door. I never came to my, school. I didn't really get into politics, so I got to Morgan State University.
Got you. So we're actually in East Liberty today.
Yeah.
And this is your old stomping grounds. A lot of change in this community, and folks have been very focused and aware of that. A lot of progress in some ways, too. What's your thoughts on that as someone who lived here as a young person?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. East Liberty is definitely different than when it was when I was a kid and growing up. And I think I like the way you said it. There's some positive change and there's some change that's not positive. I think the gentrification in East Liberty removed a lot of people whose safety net was here, that grew up here, and that, their family is here. And for them to have to be in the county now because of different developments that has happened in this neighborhood, that is the downside of it. That's the downside because we lost population. The flip side of that is the studio we're in right now. Phenomenal future-looking space that really focuses on the technology of who we are as a city now, focuses on what we're becoming, is more into the lane of, how do we better communicate on multiple platforms. I think when you look at the old and the new and the blend of it, trying to make it work, there's still some tension there from, old East Lib and new East Lib, and I think history is important, so there is no tension. So I think those are the things that I look at and say, well, the business is back like they used to be. You got Wingstop across the street. You got the Oodle Place across the street, Milkshake Factory up the street. You still got Capri on this side of the street. So you still got a lot of the new and the old as well. So, outside of the gentrification that took place, I wish those people could have stayed there. Or what I wish is that we would have, at that time, they would have built affordable housing and then move people into the affordable housing, whether that was in Larmer, Lincoln, Leamington, and Belmar, areas that are close enough where it has scattered sites because of the vacant land, that we could have moved them in there. And then they could have also been part of the new economy in the east end of Pittsburgh.
Gotcha. I want to get to affordable housing. I want to touch a little bit more on your story. So you Peabody grad.
All day.
All day.
All day. Peabody all day.
How was it? How was it back in the day, man? A lot of pride coming out of that high school, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, I played basketball for Peabody. A lot of friends that came out of Peabody. It was just a good school.
Yeah.
I remember when I realized I wasn't going to Central Catholic no more and I was going to end up going to Peabody, now Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, it was like a homecoming before homecoming. You know, being able to go to school with all the kids you grew up with. That was the one thing my mama didn't want me to do. She didn't want me to go to school with all my friends because she didn't think that I would be able to pay attention. You know, I know a lot of people, Garfield, Larmer, East Liberty. So, you know, she was concerned about that. But my first day of going to Peabody, all the people I grew up with,
yeah,
it was a celebration. it was a celebration. It was like, you know, finally I'm at a place where they know me and I know them. You know, I'm finally at a place where I feel comfortable. And I only lived across the street from the high school. So, you know, it was just a wonderful feeling. I enjoyed Peabody. I might have enjoyed it too much.
Peabody to an HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that transition and your time in D.C.
Yeah, well, first I went to Norfolk State down in Virginia.
Oh, wow. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, you know, I went to Norfolk State first. But I hadn't, like, you know, coming from a single mom, coming from where we come from, me and my mother didn't have vacations. Like, we didn't go on vacations. My vacation was Kennywood. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. To be able to get to Kennywood. So we didn't go on vacation. So, you know, I was 18 with probably a 13-year-old mentality, 14-year-old mentality. Never been out, never been, you know, on vacation. So when I got down to Norfolk State, you know, I'm the first one in my family to go to college. You know, I really didn't understand the whole dynamic of college. I didn't even know what I wanted to study. It was funny how I came up with my degree. The person in front of me said that when you're checking in, ask you what your degree is going to be, he said business management. So when I went up, I said business management.
That sounds good, right?
Right. It sounds good because I still didn't know. I had not connected the dots from high school to college because I didn't have nobody to give me instructions on what to look out for, what to be. So when I got down Norfolk State, first 2 weeks were fine. Then on Labor weekend, they took me to a place called Virginia Beach. And it was Greek week down Virginia Beach. And man, I lost my mind. You hear me? Josiah, I lost my mind down there. So, you know, needless to say, you know, I had never been on a beach.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the beach life.
Sure.
It was wonderful.
Wonderful.
Oh, my gosh. Was it wonderful, huh?
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up, you know, I came home from Norfolk that December with a 1.8 GPA, grade point average. My mother, when I came and I knocked on the door, she was like, Mom, my firstborn, the one I struggle with the most, and you bring me home a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother had never said that to me. Mm-hmm. And so that stung a little bit. That was like a little bit of a sting, like that I let my mama down. You know, I think that there's a different type of feeling when you let mama down.
Yeah, different type of love there.
You could see the pain in her face.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it went off about education to me and being a student for life. Because I went to CCAC for 2 years to get my grades up. And then I went straight to Morgan State University. And it's funny when I got to Morgan State University, the first day of class, I go to class. That's what I'm saying. This was the birth of it all, to be quite frank with you. I went to class on the first day of class, and the professor asked me what I was doing there. I was like, well, you teaching, right? And she said, well, your lesson is not in the classroom. It's with your classmates. The university, you know, there's a movement from a particular university to defund, to have Morgan State defunded by the state. And we need to make sure that we fight to make sure that we don't let nobody defund this historical black college and university. So I joined the protest. I had never been in no protest before. Back then we wasn't protesting like that in East Led. And so we marched all the way down to City Hall. And from afar, I met a gentleman named Mayor Kurt Smoke. Mayor Kurt Smoke was the mayor of Baltimore. And he helped us keep Morgan State. He went to the state with us, him and, at the time, a council person named Kwasi Mfume. They helped us keep Morgan State Historical Black College. We were able to get funded. We were able to do some things, and I was not one of the leaders in that, but I was a student of that. I got to watch how they fought for us. And so when I came home, I was laser focused on community development and wanting to get into community development. And I started working for an organization that had just opened back up because of racial tension, called East Liberty Development, Inc. And Wheeler Winstead at the time was the executive director, the interim executive director. And I went to him and I said, man, I know you ain't got no money. You ain't zooming up. I'm willing to work for free if you can teach me community development. You know, because, you know, money can change hands, but knowledge can never leave you. And so for me, it was important to understand from the ground up how we do community development. And he did. But I did tell him once they get some money, they could pay me if they like what I did.
Yeah.
And they did. From there, I went to work for a state representative who was watching my work in the community. And then once I started working for him, the mayor's office downtown, Mayor Tom Murphy, was seeing what I was doing in the community. And I started doing community development work for him. And then I did community development work for Luke Ravenstahl. And then I ran for state representative, and I won. And I was there for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came home. I ended up running for mayor, and I won. And that's how I'm here today.
Yes. So working for 2 Pittsburgh mayors is a pretty rare accomplishment. What did that experience provide you in terms of perspective and your view on the role of the city and community?
Yeah, working for Mayor Murphy was all about results, was all about here's the agenda, here's the multiple solutions that we can try, 1, 2, and 3, and being able to execute till we get what we need accomplished. So it was all about results. And the guy I had to report to, his name was Tom Cox, and he was a stickler for, you know, the details and everything else. But I couldn't ask for a better first teacher in politics because I was scared of him. You know what I'm saying? I was scared of Cox. Like, I had been in too many meetings with him and I seen what he would do. But for me, he was a great teacher. Working for Luke, working for Mayor Ravenstahl was, he was very charismatic, extremely charismatic. At a young age of 25,
Young mayor.
I always said if Luke would have became mayor at 35, he may be governor right now. Just because he was charismatic, he was intelligent. But at 25, it's difficult to be mayor. And, a lot of people say that, but I'll be honest with you. I've been 25. And, that's not a position you would want for any 25-year-old to be in.
Yeah. Enjoy being young a little bit. That's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of responsibility without defining the discipline in you. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people that you have to get older in life and more mature in life to really fall in love with discipline. Back then you just want to be free. You want to be in a situation where you, in your 20s, you're still trying to discover who you are. So there's a part of you that's free until you understand the love of discipline. And understanding that discipline is not a punishment, but discipline is a way of life. And a lot of times we don't get that. And so to be 25 and be in a position where you want to be free, but you have to be disciplined is a difficult journey for anybody. I tell people all the time, I became an adult at 21. I didn't become a man until I was 29. So I can only imagine trying to be an adult and being mayor without being a man of having discipline and being one.
I just saw Mayor Ravenstahl. There's a Alberta's Pizza on the north side. relatively new, brick and mortar location. I saw him having lunch. It was nice to see him. We met when you were a state rep, so I'd love to hear about how that experience was, because my experience was I was at the Homewood Children's Village at the time, and I remember being at back to school events at Westinghouse High School with you. I remember community dinners. You would stop by. We'd be honoring high schoolers for their like school projects at Bible Center. You would pop by, and Brother Eel and Laura. All these sweethearts were present and around in the community at that point. So I wonder what was that experience like in the legislature? And then we'll get to you, becoming mayor.
One of the things that I seen in Baltimore was how the elected officials was actually engaged inside the neighborhoods, inside of their communities. And in here, growing up, I had never seen a mayor. I had never seen a state rep. I had never seen a county. I hadn't seen no politician. So the level of engagement from the political elected position to the neighborhoods was a disconnect. If there wasn't a disconnect, I'd have knew of somebody. But I didn't know of nobody. When I came here, I wanted to make sure that I took that same energy of not falling in love with the title, but falling in love with the work. And the ability to be able to understand how you serve people, you have to be in the presence of them. And so for me, it was all about being out in the community. I used to have book bag days, and people would be like, he's giving out free book bags. They would be coming from all over. But they didn't understand that the book bags was just a carrot. What was in those book bags was what after school programs your child in the neighborhood could go to. What was in the book bag was if mama needed or daddy needed a GED, here's where you would go. What was in those book bags was if your mom or dad are looking for a job, here's the employment centers. What was in their book bags, if somebody was dealing with any type of substance use disorder, you could get this type of help if you seek it. What was in the book bag was how to start a bank account. What was in the book bag was a dollar bank, or whomever may have been helping at that time, making sure that these kids was trying to get bank accounts at an earlier age, so you was continuing to feed them. What was in the book bag was things that we were working at the state level, whether that would be public education, whether that would be transportation, whether that would be medical marijuana that I pushed extremely hard through the state. Whatever it would be, we made sure that those book bags was filled with knowledge. And whatever piece of knowledge you was interested in knowing more about, it was present. So, that was one way. Then we had, at the end of the day, what we would have is we had what we call resource sessions, where we would go out in the community and just provide resources all throughout the district about state activities, whether that was written rebates, whether that was what was going on in the Department of Public, Department of Education, whatever it may be. So we just worked it all the time, from Wilkinsburg all the way to Highland Park. When the budget was passed, we would have a town hall meeting on the budget. I'd bring in different legislatures so that people could hear exactly what was going on with their money. I thought that was extremely important. So these were ideas that I was bringing in. And then, I started seeing other people do it. So, it was a good feeling.
It definitely was. So you mentioned that you decided to run for mayor, won, and became mayor. What's the difference between being a state legislator and being mayor of the city of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, the biggest difference is results. See, in the state house, it's about how, who controls what party controls the majority of the house. So if the Republicans, when I was up there, had more members, I was never in the majority. I was always in the minority. But the thing about being in the minority, it made me work harder because I had to be able to understand how to work across the aisle with Republicans. Also, I had to understand how to go up there and research things that wasn't just going to be given because we were not in the majority. So me going in there my freshman year and being able to understand the transportation bill and understand why it was so important and how it was going to be crafted, the money that was behind it, the whole nine were all things that taught me where the money was at. So I learned where the money was at by following the legislation, and then finding out where the money was going to come from. As mayor, you get to have the ability to see your results faster. There's more problems, so there's more promise. You can't have a promise of a better tomorrow without a problem today. And so the gratitude I have of being mayor is that I didn't walk into a situation where like they say, all mayors got 6 months before the heat come. My heat came in 48 hours, you know. Found out we didn't have no snow equipment, no snow plows. They were all broken down. 21% of our personnel was not reporting to work. A snowstorm 2 days after I got elected, and I found that out. The next day, a child got shot in Oliver. Third week, the Fern Hollow Bridge falls down.
Yeah.
Fourth week, we start dealing with the unsheltered. I mean, the next week, violence was at an all-time high. Homicides were up the whole nine. All those problems provided opportunity to be able to say today that after 2 years of coming out the worst pandemic this city's ever seen, we got a 33% reduction in homicide. And even though one homicide is one too many, I understand that my sister was murdered. So I understand how homicides change families. You know, and even though my dad wasn't around when I was growing up, he became my hero because when my sister was murdered, my dad ended up taking her kids and raising them. And so to me, to watch my father take her kids and raise them, the gratitude, respect that I have for him is off the charts because I've watched him manifest into who he is today. He might not have been able to be there for me at the age. My mom was 15, he was 17. You know, being a 17-year-old father is not an easy thing. We just talked about responsibility versus freedom, which is a real thing. But the reality is, you know, we were able to reduce homicides by 33%. We went from 71 homicides down to 42. You know, gun violence, we've reduced from 45%. Last year, children between the ages of 13 and 17 that lived in this city, there was no homicides amongst our youth. You know, those are incredible numbers to be able to talk about. And a lot of that came off the fact that I made a promise that we would make this the safest city in America coming out of a pandemic, but there's no microwave meals. We were not going to get there overnight. It had to be grandma's cooking. We had to really put the real ingredients in.
Yes. Ingredients
like keeping our rec centers open longer, using our Stop the Violence money to invest in organizations that really transform young boys and girls to men and women. And we did a lot with our Stop the Violence funding to fund a lot of these, funding our football programs that have a lot of these kids that's on the borderline that they can really be able to install life into was critical. You know, community policing, having our police get out the cars and actually meet with community and neighborhood leaders in our city was amazing because they built relationships. You know what I mean? Trust is built on relationships. And if we're going to be able to find out who's doing what in the community, we need that trust. Then we brought in our violence interrupters because our violence interrupters, if there was a homicide, would go out there and talk to the victim and the perpetrator if we knew so that we could prevent retaliation in these streets. So we did a lot to be able to surround ourselves with a way to be able to talk about life and not death and why that is so important. What you promote, you become. And I wanted to promote peace in these streets so that people would end up achieving more in life than just looking at the block and thinking this is all they could become.
So I want to stay there for a quick second. I remember being at the Community Empowerment Association in the gym in there, Brother Rashad and a bunch of folks. And you articulated a vision of 0 homicides in the city of Pittsburgh.
Still believe it.
That to me was astonishing. That takes, I think, a lot of political courage. And this is in the context, to your point, of coming out of the pandemic, during the pandemic, but coming out of the pandemic, basically across the nation, violent crime had been up in cities. We'd seen it in Pittsburgh, as well. A lot of folks going through a lot of things in community in various ways. And so here you are, in Homewood, articulating this. Why was that so important so early on to you? And then you've mentioned a lot of the progress that's been made. What more would you like to accomplish in that respect?
Yeah, that right there was just being able to say that we could get to 0 homicides is because I needed to let the community know that I could feel their pain. And whenever I was in these meetings, and I have a lot of wisdoms about these meetings, is that we always talk about death. We always talk about, and we should, you should always pay homage, particularly to the mamas that are injured, the mamas that are hurt, the mamas that lost a child due to homicides. You want to pay that homage. but we can't stop there. It has to be, how do we build? Status quo don't grow. So it's about how we build. It's how we build up, and the way you build is through your youth. You know what I mean? People my age, and your age, they are who they are. It's the children that you want to be able to see a better life. It's the children that we understand when they stay in structured activity, they get to live a structured life. And so in a world where there's so much that you can go after and chase, sometimes you sacrifice your own life for the love of the street. And what I wanted them to understand is that if they stayed in structured activities and we had a goal or a vision that we could get to, and I had you focused on that, then we would keep life as a priority and want to pump and install life into our children. A lot of times kids get turned out not on the block, but in the house. You loading up guns in that house, then you getting turned out. So it's just getting them to think a little bit different. And no one could judge me on that because I'm not someone who don't understand it.
Yeah, you're not an outsider.
Yeah, I'm not an outsider, right?
Yeah. Virtue
I
signaling.
understand.
Right.
And so when I said we would reduce homicides to 0, we've been able to reduce homicides every year I've been in office. That's amazing. We've been able to reduce gun violence every year I've been in office because that was a priority to me. You can't have a safe city unless homicides are down. And the reality is, if you overlap where the homicides were happening, that's where we had to invest our resources. Because if we could eliminate or reduce the amount of homicides in areas that we know were homicide prone, we just made the city safer.
Part of what you mentioned earlier was your wishes around establishment of affordable housing in East Liberty and other parts. I know that's been a big priority for your administration. What are it's something that it just feels easy to say.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, we would like to see more affordable housing. I don't think there's any disagreement, on that. But doing it's another matter.
Right.
So for folks that don't understand the space and how complicated it is, what are the challenges in terms of actually achieving that? And then what have you accomplished, in that respect that you're trying to grow?
Yeah, one is just the fundamental understanding that housing is a human right. If we could just start with the premise of basic needs. What are our basic needs? Because you can't grow if you don't have a basic need. With the premise that housing is a human right, that is a basic need. And I've watched how we built so many market rate units. And I'm not against market rate units. I'm not. But I've watched how we've increased our portfolio of market rate housing, but decreased the population in the city due to the gentrification of neighborhoods. So now we're in a situation where we've lost population because most of the people that got gentrified moved to the suburbs. And we see where the suburbs had an increase in population because when you gentrify those many people that move to the suburbs, you are going to have a spike in growth in your suburban neighborhoods. I don't want that. I want to be able to ensure that we can keep people in their home right now. But there's things you have to put in place because there was no playbook nor no plan for affordable housing. So the first thing we did was go out and get a $30 million affordable housing bond. That was extremely important. We just used some of the money in Allentown to build affordable units. We also used 37% of our federal funds in order to preserve or construct new affordable units. When I came into office, we had moved one property out of the land bank. As of today, we moved 160 properties out of the land bank. We created a program called Own PGH, where we took renters and made them homeowners for the first time, 80% single mom, that their children will grow up in an environment of not having to rent, but an environment of earning wealth because their mama owns a home. And so the mentality shifts from what is investment to what is spending. Renting is spending, where home ownership is investment. And so now they are generating wealth for the first time in their family history, which I think is incredible.
Yes.
We've built more affordable housing units in 3 years than any administration in 20. And so we're proud of that. Then we came out with the fact that we wanted to do inclusionary zoning. And I think that's where the arguments began. But it was always my belief that if I'm only asking developers to give me 10% of affordable housing and they still get 90% market rate housing, I'm not robbing you for market rate. But when you tell me that you need to do 100% market rate because that's how you maximize your dollar, it's the same concept that they don't understand, that it's always been a poison in this region. See, I grew up in the city of housing segregation. The well-off, the haves here and the have-nots here. And so when you go around the city just by zip code, you know where you at. And so we've always had a powerful housing segregation in the city. If I say inclusionary zoning, give me 10%, that's a social worker who makes $45,000 a year and has 2 kids, can live in any new development of over 20 units in the city. To me, that's amazing. To me, it's amazing to allow a working class woman or a working class man that's making $45,000 with 2 kids to be able to live in new development no matter where it's at. And they always say that inclusionary zoning would hurt development. The last time I checked in Lawrenceville and Oakland, when we haven't, if you go by there, cranes are up in the air right now. Development's never stopped. It's a pro-development type of initiative. It's just that it's asking developers, if you want taxpayer dollars to help your development out, give me 10% so that we can repopulate our city. We can integrate our city. We can become a city for all. We can have the type of city that we want to have. We can reduce housing segregation, create housing integration, and be a city where people believe that they can thrive because they see growth and success every day, not poverty and destruction every day. As long as we're in a situation where we're going to grow our city, then we have to do it because we do it together, not separated.
Yes. So last year, we had a kickoff for one of our new programs that we are doing in partnership with the Allegheny Conference, the Pittsburgh Passport. It's about newcomers, summer interns, grad students, college students.
I remember.
Yes. Yeah, you remember because you were there. We had this kickoff at PNC Park and had food, refreshments for everybody. The Pirates were very generous hosts and sent representatives from the team, and folks got tickets to it. But I remember you addressing all the attendees. We had maybe 250, 300 people there, and pitching Pittsburgh as a place that you hope they would consider to stay, to put down roots, and to get involved. What is your pitch as mayor, to folks that are looking for a city to live in, a city to build a family, and a city for a career in, and why Pittsburgh is that place or could be that place for them?
Because of the people. Our greatest asset in this region is our people. We have wonderful people. We have good housing stock. We have a wonderful waterfront. Our rivers are beautiful.
Yeah.
Our parks are serenity. There's a lot to be proud of here. And I want to promote the city for what it is and what it can be. And it's my belief that we're doing that. To be able to promote our city to the NFL in order to get the NFL draft to come here was amazing. And please believe I was thinking about that all the time of what I would say. And so when I talk to young people why they should stay in the city, is because I want the city to have the values of young people. I want to be able to see through their eyes so that I can see that we're designing a city that they want to be in. That's why my boards and commission, 40% is young people. Because I need their vision, I need their eyes, I need them to show me what I can't see. Our vision should be different. You see what I mean? Because you're tomorrow. I'm now. And if I can help build our city for a better tomorrow, then the eyes that I need to do that have to be young. I can't do that with my eyes. My eyes can construct it, the people around me can construct it, but the eyes who can envision what it should be is in our youth. And that happening, we need our youth to be able to speak on these boards and commissions. And we also need to diversify these boards and our commission. We should make sure that it looks like what we want to see in the future. We should have whites, blacks, Latinos, Asians, the whole nine. We want the diversity of how they see the city so that they understand that we want a diverse population, like business people diverse their portfolio. The more diversity we have in our population, the more of economy that we have for our city. And so it's extremely important that I see it through their eyes, because they're our recruiters. They're the ones that tell the culture in which they come to visit the city of Pittsburgh and make it your home. You'll fall in love here. Well, in order for me to create that type of a city, give me the vision you have and let me use the wisdom I have to construct the vision that will bring immigrants here, that will bring people here that, don't live in this city and want to make this home and want to make this city their home. Give me your vision and let me construct it. Mm. And then that way we all play a part in building a city that is a city for all.
I remember you talking about the vibe of the city. Mm-hmm. I remember you talking about the vibe, downtown, a lot of progress, a lot of change, way, I think, beyond what some folks might be aware of in terms of progress. You mentioned NFL draft. Folks are saying it's going to be the largest single event in Pittsburgh's history.
I said 1 million people.
1 million people. It was 750,000, I think, in Detroit.
Yeah, it was 775.
Okay.
But we'll get to 1 million. The only reason why I say 1 million is because wherever I went, you've had a Stiller Tavern, no matter where I go in the nation.
Yeah.
And not only that, people that left here, people left here for a couple reasons, right? People left here because of the close of the steel mills, so they were looking for employment. People left here because, to be quite frank, community I'm from, they thought it was too racist and that the segregation was there and that they couldn't make it here, so they left. How do we, do you want to quantify that? That's why we don't have no black or brown middle-class neighborhoods. They left. We never really paid attention to our young people. They left. So all those people that left here are now between 40 and 60. And they're coming back home to the draft. Mm. And they're going to bring their grandkids back to show their grandkids where they grew up at, where they went to school at, the memories, the emotional ties, the bond, why they say that, we live here, but we still reside in Pittsburgh. They live wherever they live, but they reside here. Mm. Their whole upbringing, their childhood, mama, grandmama, everything here. I want to show my son, my grandson, where I come from. I want them to see the love that's in the city. I want them to see why I'm so strong when it comes to how I feel about this city. They're coming home for the draft. They're coming home for the draft. And that has nothing to do with about everybody else that follows the draft every single year. You add those two together, you're going to multiply a population because people are going to be excited about coming home.
Mm. And that's the vibe.
That's the vibe. Mm. And the vibe downtown is that downtown, when I came in, was on fire, Josiah. You know it. I believe in dealing with people with compassion and care. And I don't believe in quick fixes. I believe in changing systematic patterns. So if you change it from a system, you permanently change it. This city was never prepared for a pandemic like America wasn't. But more importantly, we never, in my eyes, cared about our unsheltered community. Like, we didn't have a second Ave comms. We didn't have a shelter. Cities our side got 1.5, 2 shelters. We had 0. When I came in, second Ave comms wasn't even open yet. You know this. We still had to cut through the red tape to get it open. Mm-hmm. There was no plan for how we dealt with our unsheltered community. We created that with the help of the county. Now we're working with our unsheltered advocates. The North Shore, the trails are cleaned up. Downtown is cleaned up. Eliza Furnace, the jail trail, cleaned up. and it took time. We thought we would get here faster, but then Second Ave catches on fire. You know what I mean? So now we back to square one.
Yeah.
So now here's another problem. How do we make it a promise? Let's continue while they're rehabilitating Second Ave. Let's continue to go out and work with the county to get more transitional housing so that we would have more transitional housing to be able to put our unsheltered community in. Your dad was phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's a phenomenal brother, for real, for real. I could talk about him for an hour. You understand what I'm saying?
Good person. Yeah.
Oh, man, come on.
Yeah.
And so just working with different agencies and being able to say that's what we've done in 3 years. And it's amazing when we say, well, they didn't do it fast enough, but other cities are still struggling for what we've already accomplished.
Mm-hmm. And your administration's philosophy is to extend a credible offer, that's the term, to each and every individual.
Each and every, because you know why? One, it changes, it's deeply rooted. It changes the system. Two, if I treat you with dignity and respect, I'm not saying that's the healing ingredient, but it's part of the ingredients. Because now you feel you have some type of respect about yourself. I understand that coming from a low-income community. So I've seen this before growing up. And so I had an understanding of what it was. I had an understanding of substance use disorder. I understand how powerful drugs were. I understand that we will never win the war on drugs. I understand that drugs is illegal, but yet we birth more drugs on our street every single year. Carfentanil, fentanyl, K2, synthetic marijuana, the whole nine. And the illegal industry, the birth is more drugs that kills people every single year. And you want me to believe that a system is designed to heal people? The system is designed to give you the output or outcome that you want. That's not where you're going to find dignity and respect. Dignity and respect is treating people with humanity. And that is the best way to lead.
I want to grab some wrap-up questions here. I want to zoom back out very quickly to something you mentioned in your first month of being mayor, Fern Hollow Bridge. So it's just to set the stage for folks. It's a school morning, but there's snow. So there's a delay, if I'm mistaken. If not, it was a delay.
Correct.
Fern Hollow Bridge, Frick Park collapses. President's coming to the site.
Yeah.
You senators, all this. Walk us through that morning and what that was like.
So I got a text from a friend, Tracy, and she said cars went over something like the cars went over the bridge or something like that. I said, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at it, I said, nah, this can't be. This can't. Yeah. Wait until I get downtown, find out what happened. So I get downtown, I call my public safety director.
Yeah.
He said the bridge collapsed. I said, could you repeat that? What do you mean it collapsed?
Right.
I've been in this city my whole life. I ain't never seen a bridge collapse.
Right.
I said, well, I'm on my way out there. He said, you can't come out here. I said, why not? Because when the bridge collapsed, it severed a gas pipe. And had they not got the gas together in a certain amount of time, it would have blew for quite a bit of miles. So once they got that, we were able to, but by that time I was on the phone with PennDOT trying to find out what we could do, because as a state rep, you know to call PennDOT. Then I called the governor, and me and the governor talked, and we knew that the president was coming, and I asked Governor Wolf at the time if, he could talk to the White House about the president pivoting and coming to the site, because he was actually coming to talk about the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And that's what occurred. And so he came out, he seen the bridge. I remember his first words, some holy mackerel, one of them words he'd be using. But that was a scary day. We were blessed that day that we didn't have no fatalities. And so I made a promise that we would never have a bridge fall again. So we created the Bridge Asset Management Program. where we began to inspect the bridges ourselves, because it was important that we inspect the bridges so that we can make sure that we were keeping up on the inspection of the bridges. And we don't have a bridge today in failing condition. The two that was, Panther Holloway and Anderson, we closed down. I apologize for the inconvenience, but I'd rather have a closed bridge than the possibility of a fatality because one fell down.
Yeah.
So we closed them. And we do have some bridges that's in poor condition, and we're working on them now. We, as of today, have no bridge in failing condition.
So
that's a lot.
That's a yes. So just to recap here, you see there's a bridge collapses. There are thankfully no fatalities, a miracle probably in a lot of ways. You're within minutes are talking with the appropriate state agency. You're talking with the governor of the state of Pennsylvania. Governor of the state of Pennsylvania is interfacing with the White House. You're meeting the President Biden at the scene, senators, things like this. What should we take away from that in terms of partnership between different levels of government, and how can it be improved over time? Because that sounds like pretty direct communication.
Sure. So, well, one, it was developed over time. You know, it's me being a state rep, being able to understand like the $600 million that we brought back to reinvest downtown.
Yeah.
You know, that $600 million in come just by, you know, we created a plan. And there's all mayors create plans, but most go on the shelf. I didn't want a plan that went on the shelf. I understood what we had to do to bring that plan here. And we did that, working with the county exec and working with the business community. We took Governor Shapiro, a plan, and he funded it for $600 million over 10 years. That's us understanding where the money's at. So let's flip it. Talk about relationship. The strongest currency you have as a person is relationship capital. Relationship capital is the strongest currency you have as a person, because who you build relationship with introduces you to resources and gives you access to resources that if you didn't build those relationships with, you wouldn't have. You could have 5 executive directors. The one that's growing is the one that's building relationship capital, because they're being introduced to a higher quality of life. They're being able to talk to people and build those relationships that can open up the doors to access the resources that can help their organization and their people. And so I tell people all the time that relationship capital has to be your ultimate goal. Because if you don't have relationship capital, then you're not in those rooms to determine what's going on. And you want to be present in those rooms. And I think with relationship capital, you also have to, and it took me a minute to understand the difference between compromise and negotiation. You still have to be able to negotiate. For me, for Gainey, I don't believe in compromising my values, but I do believe in negotiating the deal. You see what I mean? There are some things that I have to protect myself from so I don't sell my soul of who I am, for it happens to too many. And so if you don't understand the difference between compromising and negotiating, you'll end up using the two interchangeably. And somewhere down the line, you'll start wondering about where you're at. And so you have to be cautious. Do you understand your value? And how do you negotiate that value? So if I say that, for me, my highest value that I can have, is to daily be a better me. That's my value, is love. My value is wisdom. My value is insight. Because that's going to make me be a better person tomorrow than I am today. So if I'm not compromising my love of self, if I'm not compromising my wisdom, if I'm not compromising my insight, but I'm negotiating my love for you, if my negotiation is bringing me more knowledge and understanding and comprehension to better create a better deal, if that knowledge, wisdom, if that knowledge, wisdom, comprehension, and understanding is giving me more keen insight, that means I'm in a room with relationship capital that's teaching me how to see the deal differently. So now I don't take from my love. I don't take from my wisdom. In other words, I don't compromise my love. I don't compromise my wisdom. I don't compromise my insight. I build stronger love for self, stronger wisdom for self, and stronger insight in self because I've learned to negotiate a deal that brings us more without compromising who I am.
All right, final question here. How would you encourage, young people to get involved in the Pittsburgh community, at this time?
Yeah, I always tell young people, what do you love to do? Serve what you love. Because if you serve what you love, you'll always be good. And what you love at 15, you may have a different love at 20. But what I'm saying for you is serve what you love. If it's serving the homeless, that's what you love to do, do it. If it's neighborhood cleanups, do it. If it's teaching young people, do it. If it's helping our elderly, do it. If it's coaching our youth, do it. What do you love? See, what do you love, you'll do for free. How do I know? Because when I went to East Liberty Development, Inc., when they first opened up, I told the executive director, if you teach me, I'll work for free. When y'all get some money, pay me, don't get my money. But I'll work for free if you teach me. See, the money come and go, but wisdom don't. Once I got the wisdom, it's mine, and I can multiply it multiple ways.
Mayor Gainey, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you.